Welcome to the Cowboy Entrepreneur Show, created and hosted by Scott Knudsen, to explore the crossroads of horses and business. Now here's your host, Scott Knudsen.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Cowboy Entrepreneur Show. My name is Steve Reily, and I am the producer and editor of this program. We want to welcome all of our listeners on NBC Radio, KCAA in California, also those of you viewing on Equus Television Network, and also our listeners on 10 Tennessee Media in Nashville, Tennessee. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel, and today is a very special program. I am here with the host of the Cowboy Entrepreneur Show and founder of this program, Scott Knudsen. Today is going to be a little different. We've flipped the script, and we feel that we want everyone to get an opportunity to kind of know Scott, know more about his background and where he comes from, and also how he came up with the idea for the Cowboy Entrepreneur Show. So I called Scott one day. I said, hey, I think this would be a great idea for a program. Instead of us looking for another guest, why don't we sit down with you for like 45 minutes and you tell us a little bit about yourself and how this all came to be. And so, of course, I'm very excited about this. I know a lot of this information, but Scott's listeners don't. So Enough of me talking and more of Scott. Scott, how are you?
I'm doing great, Steve. How are you?
I'm doing well. It's so funny because usually I'm on headphones just listening in, but today I'm kind of doing the interview. So it's a little different, but I'm excited for people to get to know you even more.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. I was nervous at first. I was thinking I was going to get a day off, and this is a little bit more stressful on this side of it.
Yeah. So and it's a little different for me because I'm not used to interviewing people, but I'm going to do the best I can. And I know you'll be a great subject for this.
Thank you.
Let's start from the very top, as you do with a lot of your guests. Tell us a little bit about your background and how you came to be.
Yeah, man. So I grew up with great family life. I was blessed and grew up in Georgetown, Texas, and grew up on the ranch out, there in Georgetown. And both sides of my family, my grandparents, they were all in the industry, in the Western industry, as well as entrepreneurs. And just loved it. From the time I was brought home on the first day, they say they put me on my dad's roping horse. And he was sitting on there, and my mom gave me up to him, so I've been on a horse my whole life, and just the size of the saddles changed. And so, it's always been a part of me, the business side and the horse side. And we also ranched. The family also had a ranch in West Texas in Sonora. So we'd get to go out there a lot too. So just grew up in it.
So you've been around horses your whole life?
Whole life yes. Yeah, mainly quarter horses. Growing up, it was mainly quarters. My dad was a calf roper and raced. And my parents had race horses, quarter horses, and as I grew out of that, I'm still a quarter horse guy, and all my horses are quarter horses. But we train paints and all different breeds and different disciplines, and just love the horse, just everything about it.
So, in your youth, when you were, did you do any rodeo, or as growing up as a kid, as a high schooler?
I did. Even the race horses, we got to help start and help condition before they would go to the trainers. And we would go to the trainer barns and watch them work the horses for the racetrack. Or we would go to the vet clinics and watch them with the breeding programs and the foaling programs. So I was always around it. And I love seeing the different areas of the industry, not just saddling and riding, which is the main thing I love doing. But we saw all the other aspects. And that's really got me excited about the industry and wanted me to do more in it.
So did you go to school in Georgetown? Did you?
I did. I graduated high school in Georgetown and I was riding some rough stock and roping and starting the family horses and just anytime we could ride a horse, man, I was doing it. But yeah, I loved it so much.
And what were your plans? Like, you graduated out of high school, imagine an 18-year-old Scott Knudsen.
Oh yeah, that's trouble. No, I went to school, and I went 1 year to Southwest Texas State. That's what it was called, in San Marcos. And I blew out my knee riding a horse, and it's pretty hilly down there. So I took a year off and just went to a junior college nearby so I could rehab. And then the last 2 years, I went up to Stephenville, Texas, to Tarleton State and graduated with a business degree. And I was still riding a whole lot. Not for the team, not for the Tarleton team, but just professional best I could, and training still whenever I could, and got that business degree. I thought I needed something to fall back on, but really it was a good counterbalance to everything else I've done.
Mm-hmm. Well, later, as we'll find out, we'll discuss, you were able to combine your business background with your horse knowledge.
Yeah.
So, but a lot of people don't know this about Tarleton. If you're from out of state or you're not familiar with Tarleton, they have a really large ag program. They're very involved with ranching and agriculture, aren't they? There,
they really are. Yeah, they're part of the Texas A&M system now. At that time, I don't believe they were, but yeah, they really do. Very, very good school. We go up and support them whenever we can.
Yeah. So you graduated with that business degree. And I guess you said you blew your knee out. Did that keep you from competing or riding as much as you wanted to?
No, we kept going. We kept rehabbing the parts of my body that were working at the time, and that's kind of what we did. If I broke an arm, we'd rehab legs. We were always focusing on something to get better. We never let an injury stop us. We never worried about that too much. It just gave me a chance to concentrate on some other part of my body to get stronger to go ride. And if I was at a point where I couldn't get stronger, I was watching tape or doing something to get better. So it never stopped us. It might have slowed us down a tinge, but it actually sped us up because it made us better in other aspects.
Did you have any favorite events or events you performed better in than others?
Yeah, I love the bareback riding. I love the rough stock. That's what I did. But bareback was always fun, I guess, just because of the horse again. But now it's moved more to the team roping and the calf roping a little bit, more team roping and sorting and pinning, still horse related, very horse related, but now there's more of a cow search in there too. So, love it just as much.
So I would guess this whole time, after you were spending all your time in the kind of hill country, Texas area, you finished with your business degree, out of Tarleton, and then what?
I kept riding a lot, and I thought I needed a job. And, I don't know why I thought that. I was able to do pretty well riding and such, but I got a job, but the job allowed me to still ride on the weekends. So it was a 3 or 4 day a week job, but it was a professional job, and I catered it so I could compete still. And I was able to do that. And it was a good balance, because I could really work hard on my riding and my ranching and such. But then when I would get, just a little tired, I could go focus on my business side, and it would really help you. Some people take days off. I just change jobs, throughout the week.
Well, I know you, and anybody that knows you knows that you have a strong work ethic, that you're a hard worker. That's one thing that everyone will always say about Scott Knudsen, is that man knows how to work.
Thank you.
So I can imagine you having more than one job at a time. What was ranching profitable? I mean, is it even at that time? Did you feel like you needed to have that other job, or was it just?
I didn't feel I needed to. I think I was just. That's a great question, Steve. I thought everybody had to go get a real job, even though the ranching and the cowboying was a real job, and I did it and I liked it. It was good. It really helped pay bills for sure. It was wonderful. Had all the corporate benefits, Fortune 50 company. It was great, but and we worked our way up in it. But at the other time, I already had a real job. I just had 2 real jobs, and they were a little bit different, but yet somewhat the same.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know in the next 15 minutes, we're going to talk more about your business background and your experience and kind of what you did. But take me from, if you don't mind sharing a little bit more of your personal side, because I know, you graduated college, you had your business degree, you're working 2 jobs. One of them is ranching. The other one is in sales and business mostly. And then, obviously, like any young man, you finally meet the right woman, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Make me blush. Just happened to see her in San Antonio, and 6 months later we got married. I didn't want to wait for the paint to dry, so to speak. I needed to sew that deal up, and I remember our first date. I was in El Paso and I was riding the night before and I broke some ribs and drove all the way home back to San Antonio to take her out on the first date. And we rented some horses, which I've never done before. And in Bandera, Texas, just because I wanted to have her on my field. I didn't, she was a model and I was a cowboy. So I didn't know where she was going to end up taking me. So I wanted to get the right path.
So, of course, I know Tracy. Tracy's a wonderful woman, and you guys are a great match. You talk about work ethic. I mean, she's another person that, of course, she's bright and she's beautiful. Like you said, she used to model, and she also knows how to drive a tractor.
Yeah, she can. Yeah. It's so funny. She didn't want any part of being with a cowboy or the country. She just didn't know. And I did, but now, man, she changes oil in the tractor and the truck and she just loves it. She just likes being around it, so now the chicken is in the pigs. They follow her, not me.
Well, I know she came out of my property once and pulled drove the tractor off a gooseneck trailer and plowed down a shed for me. and I was standing on the side there going, what? Yeah. It's very impressive. Very impressive. So, man. Yeah. So you went riding with broken ribs on your first date?
Oh, yes. Yeah. Whatever it took, man, I had to. Yeah. We did.
Did you tell her you had broken ribs?
We did one of those first date awkward side hugs, and I flinched just a tinch, and she knew something was up, but she never really understood what we did for a living until she watched a couple of movies and saw what it was really about. And then she got a little bit more concerned, but it's just pain and injuries are just part of what it is, and I always looked at it as not an obstacle. It was just always make you tougher, and build a story for later on down the line. And
so 6 months, you married Tracy. And how many years have you been married now?
Almost 25.
Wow, that's great.
Thank you, man. Yeah, I'm glad she doesn't realize really what happened yet,
Well, you grabbed her before she had a chance to reconsider.
I did, man. I pulled her to the country and put the gate up, and it was done.
So no, if anybody knows Tracy, you guys are a great match. You're a wonderful couple.
You.
It's no surprise you've been married for 25 years.
Thank you.
And of course, you have a lovely daughter too.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, well, you've helped so much with Haley and with theater and acting, and you've just been such a part of the family. Well, you are family, but yeah, she's just as tough. Haley's tough. She's been through her things, and she's beautiful and like her mom, and tough. And it's just the grit. I think it's the grit of the country or grit of the industry, and it's just paid off for her too.
I think it's some of that work ethic like you talk about. And I know you talk about with other guests too, about how you've got to go out and make things happen. I will say this about you and Tracy and Haley, that you don't wait for opportunities, and you don't sit waiting and watching other people do the work. You get in there, you pitch in, you make it happen. And I believe too, if you do those things, good things will come to you.
Absolutely.
So either through recognition eventually or just the rewards. Hard work always pays off.
Always does. Always
and
does.
That's even if you don't have that basic education, even if or any kind of education, or if even you don't have the financial opportunities that some young people have when they're starting off, if you have that work ethic, which that'll take you places that are, those other things may not.
100% agree. It's all about the work ethic. You surround yourself with the right people and get that trust factor up there, and you just go to work, and good things that happen.
Yeah. And hand in hand with that is that humility, which I know you and I talk about. You say to me quite often, you like to be people that are just humble. You like to surround yourself with people that they don't have to tell you how great they are. You just see it through their actions. You just see it through, the job they do.
Yeah, they cast a long shadow, and shadows don't speak. The work does.
Mm-hmm. Well, when we come back in the next 15 minutes, Scott's going to tell us a little bit more about his rodeo experience and also his business experience. And eventually, near the end of the program, he's going to talk a little bit about how he joined those together and came up with the idea for the Cowboy Entrepreneur Show. So don't go away. Come right back, and we will be here. Thank you.
Scott will be right back with more.
Hi, I'm Scott Knudsen, host of the Cowboy Entrepreneur Show, heard on KCAA Fridays, 3 p.m. Pacific. I'd like to talk to you about something I'm very passionate about. Those that know me know I love my coffee. In the morning, afternoon, and even late in the evening, I enjoy a good cup of coffee almost any time of the day. Now, my team at the Cowboy Entrepreneur Show has been working for several months on creating and introducing our own brand of coffee. We wanted to make sure that we got it just right. We don't want to put our name on anything unless we're 100% certain that it's the best product available, and we've finally done it. We have created a wonderful line of coffees, 13 fantastic flavors offered in whole bean, ground, and K-Cups, any way you like to brew your coffee. Now, each of our coffees carries our brand, the very same brand that we put on our horses, our trailers, and our chaps. So you know that this is a quality product. And we only use 100% Arabica beans, the very best beans available. Just listen to some of these wonderful blends and flavors. Jamaican Me Crazy, Honduran San Marcos, Chocolate Cherry Amaretto, Breakfast Blend, and my very favorite, Haley's Blend. A coffee so good, we named it after my daughter. You can order these coffees today by going online to javacowboy.com. That's javacowboy.com. And if you order today, you can get an extra 10% off your final purchase just by entering the promo code COWBOY on checkout. Remember, that's promo code COWBOY for an extra 10% off. Just go to javacowboy.com to order your coffee today. Hello, I'm Scott Knudsen, host of the Cowboy Entrepreneur Show. I want to tell you about a product I've tried and I love, and I feel the Cowboy Entrepreneur audience will as well. It's Rebellious Infusions. Rebellious Infusions, they're little packets of flavor. And you know, it gets hot in South Texas, over 100 degrees every day. And I like my water, but it's water. So I use these infusions, put them in my water. It makes it cold. It's great flavor, 0 sugar, 0 calories. It's pure energy infusions. Rebellious Infusions. Go to drinkrebellious.com or on all social media platforms. Drink Rebellious.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Cowboy Entrepreneur Show. My name is Steve Reily. I am the producer and editor of the Cowboy Entrepreneur Show, and I want to welcome our guest, who is normally the host of this program and also the founder of this program, Scott Knudsen. Scott, glad you could join us back for another 15 minutes.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. And thank you for what you do for the show.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. I enjoy doing it. I really do.
So much fun.
Well, let's talk a little bit about where we left off. I mean, we kind of know your journey as to how you ended up in sales and how you ended up where you are, going into, your business career and how you started your family and everything. I want to know a little bit more about your rodeo background, because you were talking about your first date with Tracy and the cracked ribs and being in competition out in El Paso. I know a little bit about the history, but I don't think a lot of your listeners or viewers know much about your rodeo background and your horsing background. Would you mind sharing that?
Yeah, sure. I grew up in it. My dad was a calf roper, and it was really cool. And my mom's side of the family, they all roped, and they had an arena, and my dad had his arena in the ranch, and we have our arena. And we just grew up around the sport. I love it. And I wanted to ride rough stock just because I don't know. Everybody else roped, so I figured I'd ride rough stock. And I love the bucking horses. Did some bulls, rode some bulls, roped, and I also trained horses at home growing up, and then throughout school and other ranches too. So I was always doing something in the industry to do that. And I loved it. I love the people. I just got back from the NFR in Vegas in a different role than riding, for sure. But it's really the people and the environment that just keeps you coming back. So I grew up in it. I love it and cherish it.
So a little bit about, I know you told me about some competition and some events you've done and some things you really enjoy. So when you were competing, did you just go like all over the state of Texas?
I went all over. I went over the Southwest. I kept getting hurt a lot. I'd start riding really, really well. And then something would happen, something freaky. If I was training a horse at a barn or something would happen. So I never could crack that next level, but we were at a pretty good level for sure. I remember the first when I was a young kid, it was in San Marcos at the Coliseum. And I had a couple of buddies with me and I saddled up a bronc and it was a bareback horse. And I got hung up on him and I went back. I flipped over the horse and over the fence. Ooh. And yeah, my buddy, he's trick riding or something like that. Make a joke out of it because that's what you do. You don't dwell on it. And, a few of those. And I was like, man, I gotta get in shape better, just because I can ride at a certain level at the ranch, this is a different deal. And it didn't humble me. I was already humble, but it refocused me. And, and horses to do that really quickly. And, but it made me a better rider. And it's funny, those falls and those accidents make you become a better rider if you let them. And, but I loved every part of it. I love how, you're competing against somebody, but they're also helping pull your ropes when you need it or, sharing gear bags and such. It's really a cool deal.
So you've been thrown by horses, you've been gorged by bulls.
I've been cut up by bulls and horses.
You've been pinned by cattle, I'm sure, up against a fence a few times.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So,
side of the cliff with a horse. Yeah. I mean, we've been torn up. There's no joke about that. But some I put myself in that position, some I didn't. They were just better on that day than I was. But it happens. And
so that's I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, I remember being in Lufkin, Texas, East Texas, and I was riding a horse, and it spun me under, and I got a spur hooked, and I got stepped on the back of my head, and heck, I don't remember walking out, but they told me I walked out of the arena. It was a concussion and stuff, and but then that night we rode again. I think we rode 4 more that afternoon and night, because we had to finish up what we drew, and. But it makes for good stories down the road. And, whenever I grew up in Georgetown, I remember I'd go to the feed store and, with my parents and later just by myself. And I'd watch all the older guys, they'd sit around and they would tell their stories. And hey, I was a kid, man. I didn't have any stories, and I always wanted some. So I figure every time I'd saddle a horse, I'd get closer to having stories, to tell. And I guess that's what inspired me to keep going.
Yeah, well, you do have quite a few stories to tell. And that's because as I've known you, and I've known you for many years, that you are what you would call a real cowboy. Yeah. You're not an urban cowboy. You're not one of these guys that's all hat, no cattle. You are a true blue cowboy. You grew up cowboy. You are cowboy. You live cowboy.
Yeah, that's right. There's as much dirt in my truck as there is in my pasture. I mean, we live it, and they get fed before we leave and when we get home. And it's definitely.
Yeah, I remember the first time I rode in your truck with you, and I climbed in there, and there were, there's gloves and there's boots, and there's rope and, and there's dirt on the floor, for the pasture, and there's some shell casings, and I'm just looking around like this guy's a real cowboy. I said, he's the real thing,
Yeah.
So
absolutely. Yeah. I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
So,
when we first got married, my wife and I, we lived in town for a short period until we found out she was pregnant. We moved to the country, and we used to train horses. We were like mobile trainers, so I would throw some saddles in the truck and the sandwiches and some waters, and we'd go from ranch to ranch. And just whatever horse was there that needed to be worked, that's what we did. And that really helped my riding style, because we were riding everything from thoroughbreds to Morgans to warm bloods and different disciplines outside of rodeo, hunter, jumper, and stuff. And that really helped. But it helped me just be a horse person and a cowboy, because I could see the other ranches. And man, that was great. And so I had everything in my truck, because you never knew when you rolled up what you were going to need.
See, I'm not a horse person. I mean, I admire it. I've always admired the cowboy style and way of life. And you and I talk a lot. And, I'm a big fan of Western films and movies. But I only know it as like an observer and an admirer. But for you, it's like a way of life. It's something that you've always done. Have you ever, dealing with, as you were talking before, these different kinds of horses, I hear a lot from your guests. This is one thing I hear from many of your guests, is that you've got to listen to the horse. You've got to let the horse lead you sometimes before you just go in there and start leading the horse.
Right.
Is there a difference, like the different kinds of horses or different kinds of breeds, or?
Yeah. Just like people, different horses have been through different things, and they're going to tell you, if you let them and you listen and you watch them, what they've been through. And that's how you know where you can step in and start fixing wherever that is and moving the relationship forward. But it's just a matter of watching them. You can watch their jaw if it gets tight, or their lips are tight, or their ears, if they're paying attention to you or looking away and disrespecting you. It's really an incredible dance with no words. But yeah, they will absolutely tell you. And then once you bring them up the right way and work with them the right way, there's no better partner. They will always be there for you. I remember, we've had some of the wildest horses you could imagine, just because of what they've been through, not their fault at all. That became some of our biggest supporters. We always took care of me, and we'd go out and ranch and catch cattle for other people that couldn't be caught. And that horse was there to protect me, and I was there to protect him. And it was really cool. I remember there was a couple of horses that might have got scratched up. I'd doctor them at the barn. At the same time, I'd doctor myself. It was just, I'd get the horse tape, and I'd tape their scratch on their shoulder or whatever it was. And I might tape up something on my part that we had a rough day, at work, catching cattle, and we'd come home and horse would get fed. Then I'd go get fed, and just became a relationship. But man, there's nothing better, pulling up at the barn late at night, seeing the lights on, and your horse is tired and you're tired, and a little dirty, a little cut up, but made a day.
Wow. So, talking a little bit about that, and I know a little bit about your business background too, because as you had mentioned earlier in the first 15 minutes, you worked for a Fortune 500 company, and your experience there. So we know a lot now, or more, about your cowboy side. Tell us a little bit more about your business side, because you said you were doing both.
I love business, man. I love business. And there's so many businesses within the Western industry. There's also business outside of it that I love too. It's just kind of the same deal, with sales. I never sold for myself. I never really sold for the company I work for. I always sold for the customer, because I figured if I can make the customer successful and help fix a problem, they'd want to buy again, and they could stay in business to buy again, because I did it the right way. And as I moved my career on the Fortune 50 company, the same thing applies in the horse world. As I trained horses or worked with horses and did it for the horse and not for my self gain, it always worked out better. If I ever tried to skip a step to get a horse prepared for an event sooner than I should, it would always mess up. Somewhere down the road, it would mess up. It wouldn't be fair to the horse. So in sales and sales management, whatever I did over there, it was always for the customer. I never wanted to short them or cheat them or anything. That's just not, first off, it's not the Western code. It's not what I do, but it would never pay off. It would never help out. And I love seeing those customers that entrusted our voice to help their business. And there's a special relationship there too.
Well, see, that's because your listeners don't know this, but you and I originally met working for the same company. We were both in sales. Yeah. And that's one thing that I learned. And I learned because when I started my career there in sales, I started working under you. And one is that you listen to the customer. If you, that's what a lot of salespeople that are starting out don't realize. You don't need to do the hard sell. You don't need to do the talking. You ask an open-ended question and sit back. The customer will tell you what they want.
Yep.
That's right. Yeah. Just like the horse will tell you.
It's the same. If you allow them, they'll tell you where they need help. And then your job is to be creative and fix it and try and help. And it's the same thing as a horse. I appreciate you saying that. It's exactly the same. And I don't know how anyone can help a customer, help a horse when you don't allow them to tell you what's wrong. I think that's a height of arrogance, is when you say, I can fix your problem, and you really don't know what the problem is.
Right. Or a salesperson would step in, you make that quick sell, but you haven't, you haven't solved anything for them. And that customer doesn't feel heard. They don't feel helped. Whereas if you listen, you try to help the customer, you establish a partnership with that customer, you have a long-term client. You have somebody that will come to you and stay with you and be loyal to you, as opposed to somebody that the customer is, is smart. They'll figure out if someone's just taking advantage of them for just the sale. Just as I assume a horse is smart enough to know if a greenhorn gets on top. Yeah,
absolutely. It's a relationship, and that's important. And just like with our horses, I go down to the barn and they hook on, and I don't need a lead rope to lead them. They'll stay right with me. And just like with the customers, I would always hope they would stay right with me because they knew they could trust me. And I was one call away or whatever they needed. And I took it serious, it wasn't a job. It was, I was taking care of friends and family, and I made it that way.
Well, I know, and you were very successful and very successful in your career. And not only were you recognized with several awards and recognition, but you were also promoted through the company over time. So a lot of good things happened for you because I think not just because of your work ethic, but just because you were so successful at listening and knowing what the customer wanted.
Thank you. Yeah. So thank you. Yeah.
I know you're humble and you don't like to hear that kind of stuff, but I said it anyway.
It's a team, it's a team, I might do the sale, but there's so many other people helping complete it. And there's that responsibility too, not only with the customer, but with everybody else helping to complete that, because everybody's relying on that handshake deal at the end of the day to work. So I took that serious as well, but it was a team sport.
Well, I know that it was probably several years ago, but I know anybody that watches this program, when they see it on the YouTube channel or they listen to it, they'll hear a lightning strike at the end. And at the end of the program, it'll say Lightning K Productions, and you see that lightning strike. And there's a reason why, and it's also incorporated in your brand somewhat, and a lot of things that you sell or do. And I know when we come back in the next 15 minutes, I'd like to talk a little bit about that, because that was a life-changing experience for you.
It really was.
Right?
It really was.
Just a little bit, right?
Yeah, absolutely it was. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I want to talk about that. We also want to talk about the idea of the Cowboy Entrepreneur and how you came up with it and kind of joined these ideas of the horse and business world.
Sounds great.
We'll be right back after these few messages. Thank you, folks.
Thank you for listening to the Cowboy Entrepreneur Show. Scott will be right back with more. For more information on Scott Knudsen, the Cowboy Entrepreneur, visit us online at cowboyentrepreneur.com.
Hi, I'm Scott Knudsen, host of the Cowboy Entrepreneur Show, heard on KCAA Fridays, 3 p.m. Pacific. I'd like to talk to you about something I'm very passionate about. Those that know me know I love my coffee. In the morning, afternoon, and even late in the evening, I enjoy a good cup of coffee almost any time of the day. Now, my team at the Cowboy Entrepreneur Show has been working for several months on creating and introducing our own brand of coffee. We wanted to make sure that we got it just right. We don't want to put our name on anything unless we're 100% certain that it's the best product available, and we've finally done it. We have created a wonderful line of coffees, 13 fantastic flavors offered in whole bean, ground, and K-Cups, any way you like to brew your coffee. Now, each of our coffees carries our brand, the very same brand that we put on our horses, our trailers, and our chaps. So you know that this is a quality product. And we only use 100% Arabica beans, the very best beans available. Just listen to some of these wonderful blends and flavors. Jamaican Me Crazy, Honduran San Marcos, Chocolate Cherry Amaretto, Breakfast Blend, and my very favorite, Haley's Blend. A coffee so good, we named it after my daughter. You can order these coffees today by going online to javacowboy.com. That's javacowboy.com. And if you order today, you can get an extra 10% off your final purchase just by entering the promo code COWBOY on checkout. Remember, that's promo code COWBOY for an extra 10% off. Just go to javacowboy.com to order your coffee today.
Hello, I'm Scott Knudsen, host of the Cowboy Entrepreneur Show. I want to tell you about a product I've tried and I love, and I feel the Cowboy Entrepreneur audience will as well. It's Rebellious Infusions. Rebellious Infusions, they're little packets of flavor. And you know, it gets hot in South Texas, over 100 degrees every day. And I like my water, but it's water. So I use these infusions, put them in my water. It makes it cold. It's great flavor, 0 sugar, 0 calories. It's pure energy infusions. Rebellious infusions. Go to drinkrebellious.com or on all social media platforms. Drink Rebellious.
Hello, everyone. This is Steve Reily, the producer of the Cowboy Entrepreneur Show, welcoming you back for this very special program where I am interviewing who is the regular host of the program, Scott Knudsen, and founder of the program, the Cowboy Entrepreneur. Right before the break, Scott, we talked a little bit about a life-changing experience, something that happened to you about 17 years ago.
Yeah,
and I know some of your listeners might know about it, but maybe you could share a little bit more.
Absolutely. So on my daughter's 1-year birthday, to the day, my wife calls and she says, Scott, come down to the barn. I just cleaned the tractor. And, right there, I'm smiling. I can't wait to get through the gate at the ranch. And I go down there and she gives me Haley, and Haley's on my left side and Tracy's on my right. And it's a sunny day, but it's raining about 15 miles off, and lightning came out of the blue, and it struck me in the head, came out my hand and wrapped around Haley. And I was aground for it. And we lived through it. At first we didn't really even know what happened. It was like the old days with the TV when you unplug it, plug it in, all the fuzzies. And we're in young parent mode and 1-year baby mode. I mean, we didn't really know. And I thought I was okay. We made it to the house. The horses were in chaos. They were bouncing into each other. There were some loose ones out in the pasture, and our septic system sprinklers came on and some things messed up, and we knew there was something bad happened. We just didn't know how bad. And, we made it to the house, and we thought we were fine, or Tracy would have never left. But Tracy goes to town to get a birthday cake, how innocent. And, she comes back, and my half of my face is black, and it was just charred, and we didn't know what to do, or Tracy wouldn't have left me, or it was just chaos. So we call, and you heard that joke when you get hit by lightning. So we didn't know to take it serious because it wasn't raining, and we call Ask a Nurse because we didn't know what to do. And they said, you got to go to the hospital immediately. So Tracy drove, and it went in front of Tracy. So her eyes and ears were a little messed up for a couple of days, but she drove, I think she did. And they checked us over and sent us home. And, cause they've never seen anyone live through it. They didn't know. And then our regular doctor said, you got to go back, and they got us in some lightning strike stuff. But it just continually got worse for us. Haley was fine. Thank goodness. That's the main thing. Tracy became fine again. But, I lost a lot of memory before the lightning. I had to learn to read and write again with Haley, and watch the Wiggles. Had to learn, lots of Wiggles. Had to learn to do everything again, and I forgot a lot, which that's okay. But we never looked at it as a negative. It gave me more time to be with Haley and Tracy. We recentered a lot of stuff. We refocused a lot of things, but we didn't want to run from it, so we made that our family brand, our generational brand, the Lightning K, and we put it in our house and chaps and trailers and trucks and horses. It's everywhere. And we wanted to spin it as a positive. We lived through it. Our family became closer because of it. And we somehow survived it, but, it was a heck of a shock. It did a lot of things. I remember a couple of years after it even happened, I'd be, maybe popcorn at a movie and the fillings would fall out. I mean, it was a bad deal. So to live through that, it was a blessing for sure.
So that's it's what people would call a near-death experience.
Oh,
I mean, it's life-changing.
Yeah, I was gone. And, I had so much metal in my face. I have 2 plates in my face, neck, back, shoulders, knees. So, they don't know if that attracted it. They don't know if it was just where I was standing. Nobody really knows why it happened. So, but it did. And, but for my wife, she went from 1 kid to 2. From my daughter, she went from a dad to a brother. It really shook up everything a little bit, but it turned out the way it's supposed to turn out, you know.
Yeah, but have you come out from the other side of something like that, if you survive, it gives you an appreciation for life, for family, for
It does, Steve. I mean, we slowed down some. I mean, I still work a lot. I mean, a lot, but it's all because I want to. It's all around my family of horses. It's, you know, around you. It's around people I want to be around. And that's why we made some other changes. But yeah, it definitely changed a lot. It forced us to stop. And but we never looked at it as a negative. And I think maybe some of the other big injuries we've had along the way before we got to that, we never thought about death. We never thought I wouldn't get healed. We never thought about not learning to read or write again. The negative never slipped in our mind. It just never, no injury is it ever, but with that one, it could have. You know, Tracy was telling a story the other day and I forgot a lot of stuff, you know. She had to teach me numbers and we would sit at the old phones and she would say 3. And I didn't know how to hit the number 3. I would hit like an 8. I mean, she was teaching me, and, you know, I'm 30 something, you know, and trying to learn that again. So it was humbling and very, very humbling.
But yeah, like I said, you come back from something like that with a deeper appreciation for the good things, for the things that really matter.
Yeah, so, absolutely. So
we know how you came up with your brand now.
Yeah, that's it, man. It's the Lightning K, and we want it to be strong, you know, strong and humble, and you can get over things with it, and it means something now.
So what eventually led you to where you are now? So when did you decide this would be a great idea? If I was somehow able to merge my two worlds, the business and the horse, the cowboy and the salesman, when did you decide to put that together, and how'd you come up with this idea?
Just about 3.5 years ago. It's happened so fast. My niece asked me to speak at Texas A&M, and I was scared to death, man. I didn't like being on that side of the camera. I didn't like speaking, and shame on me. You know, I guess God built me for it. I just was stubborn enough not to do it, and now I did that. And the first question the students asked me was, have I ever been hurt? I never told any of these stories. And I had neighbors that didn't even know I was hit by lightning until Fox News and Weather Nation, all those guys started doing shows about us after I did the speech. But I answered that. And they said, have you ever failed? And I answered those honestly. And at the end of the handshake line, you know, there's kids crying. Like, no one ever said it was okay to fail. And I'm like, oh my, stay around me. You'll see it every day. You know, every day, man, there's failure and there's stuff that happens, but it's just getting through it and learning from it. And I called a buddy of mine at a magazine. I said, we got to keep going with this. So we got a publicist and started speaking around the country, and it just kept going. And I love it. You know, I get to meet so many more people, and hopefully, you know, I'm supposed to encourage them when I speak, but usually it's the other way around and I get encouraged. So I love it. I'm addicted to it.
What I've noticed is a lot of the people you meet, the guests you bring on to the show are, like I've said before early in the program, they have, you know, you draw them in because, hey, you know about horses and you have this business background, but they're humble and they have this strong work ethic, and they're astute when it comes to business in business sense. I mean, they know how to run a business, or they know how to operate a business.
Yeah, you're right, Steve. You know, and that's why I love our show, because it gives a voice to, they have a voice. They have a big microphone. And we've had Olympians and Hall of Famers, all these great people, business leaders, like incredible business leaders, but no one knows their story. And we talk a little bit about the success, but we really focus on how to get there and the failures, and like Jason with Beck sunglasses, how his first prototype just fell apart in front of his family, but now look at him. You know, we all go through those things, and I think it endears the listener, the audience, to these companies and to these people to know that they've been through stuff too. They just keep going. They don't stop. And that's the secret. Everyone goes through it. If you keep going, you're going to get through it. If you don't stop, you won't ever get through it. And I think it's inspirational just to have those people on our shows, for sure.
Yeah. I would say most of your guests, they come from a background that's not necessarily affluent. They don't have necessarily a lot of money to start out. They don't necessarily have, a Ivy League degree.
You're right.
But they're smart. Yeah. They're smart and they're dedicated, and they know that hard work will eventually pay off. Now, people do succeed because they may have those connections, or they may have that money or that family that helps them get started. But I would say the majority of your guests, most of the people that I've met through this show, they're not like that. They're self-made.
Yeah, that's right. That's astute, man. Yeah, I guess so. They really are. And I think in a way it shapes you different when you do it yourself. And then when you help others get there, it really changes you a little bit. And you can see that in our guests. And that's why I'm just honored to get to do the show and be around those kind of people. And I love when they tell those stories about how they finally got the right way and they were successful. And then they didn't stop. They kept trying to get better, but then they start helping everybody around them, even more. And
they'll also talk about their failures. They'll talk about, well, I tried to do this, and that didn't. I kept trying and trying until I finally hit upon either that one product or that one idea that just took off.
And that's right. And when we talk about the failures, or when they talk about their failures, just like mine, we don't cry about it or embarrassed about it. We kind of laugh about it. Man, I did this and this didn't work. Like me riding my first bareback course, I got threw over the fence. I mean, it's just, but you learn from it. So you kind of appreciate it.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's just like this program in itself. It's like it just keeps getting better and better, I think, if I could say that. And part of that's from experience, is from you and I keep trying to improve it and make it better and better. It's just,
I can't wait. It's like our meeting yesterday, you have some more ideas to make it even better. And I know the audience is going to love it. But I think that's the secret, not only business, but life. You just have to get better. You
can't be complacent. You cannot.
You can't, man. You can't. If you don't have time to work out every day, get up 30 minutes early and do something. You have to make yourself want more, and then you'll end up getting more.
Or when you become complacent, or you rest on your laurels, you're like, I'm just okay where we're at now. Your competition comes up from behind.
You never see them coming, and they pass you. There's no recovery then. There's no way.
And there's always competition. So Cowboy Entrepreneur. So what have you got going on right now? I mean, you've got a lot of projects I know about. I know you've got some stuff happening. TV, you got a book, movie. You want to share some of that with your audience?
Yeah, man, we're so blessed. It's just growing so fast. And just our sphere of new people coming into the environment is so much fun. We do have the movie we're working on. I think that goes into filming next May, and that's about the lightning that's going to roll into a TV series. And there's incredible people around that, just so talented. I just stay in my lane. And that's it. They know what to do. And we have 2 books that are being published right now that come out early first quarter next year. And we're still writing for that magazine that helped start this whole deal, Performance Horse magazine. And we have our new TV show on Equus Television Network. It's called On the Road with the Cowboy Entrepreneur. And that's so much fun. We just get to go to places, and we just signed a deal with Equine Media Group for our podcast. And just all over the place. And we're still speaking a lot. We're doing Crossed Over Career that Cameron Arnett and BJ Arnett started. And man, I love that. I think we have 2 or 3 big dates next year set for that. So we'll be going to Crossed Over Career and just out there shaking hands and hopefully riding some horses.
Well, I know most of your listeners know where to find you or where you are out there. Of course, you're on Facebook. You have your website, you have a YouTube channel where this program, a lot of people, if they're watching this, they're probably watching it on the YouTube channel. You also have your podcast, which goes out on Spotify, iHeartRadio. It's on KCAA. Any other platforms I'm missing?
I think there's like 14 platforms now it's on. So it's growing. The network's growing there too. And we're on 10 Texas Media too. They're going to start carrying our show. A great media company out of Nashville. And And yeah, it's just growing. The reach is growing, which I love. And it's not so much for me, it's humbling for me, but it's so people can hear the other, the successful people's stories, and successful people in the fact that not how many zeros are on their check, but what they have accomplished and how they're helping others accomplish something. And that's what I'm excited for people to get to hear. And when there's a guest on the show, I know that their story is going to be shared in a way it might help somebody that maybe normally wouldn't have heard that story.
What I like about what you're doing is you're breaking stereotypes. A lot of people, they had this idea of the cowboy from film, from movies. They ride from town to town. They're just carrying their saddle, and they don't have a home. They don't, they tend to drink a lot. They're very blue collar. That's Mama, don't let your babies grow up to be cowboys, is how the song goes.
That's it.
But that's not the way it really is, at least not for everybody. A lot of these people, that work in the industry are smart,
Yes.
and they have a good business head about them, and they're well educated. They know what they're doing. And that's, I think, what I like the most about your program is that it breaks that stereotype. It breaks that idea that you can be both. You can be astute in business and also be a cowboy.
Right. Well, thank you. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I think to be successful, you can't just travel around and do all that stuff. I mean, you have to be hyper focused on what you want. You got to know what you want your results to be and how you want to get there. It's a big industry. The Western industry is, I think, 2.4 million jobs just in the United States. It's a multi-billion-dollar industry, and it's a worldwide industry also with the horses. I mean, completely around the world. So it's a big global business. So to get in and not take advantage of that, and the fact that to get all you can get out of it to help others is what I mean by that. Because there's nothing better than having interns out here at the ranch, and then all of a sudden they become successful and talking to other people, or giving them a platform to talk about their business, like on our show. And then all of a sudden their business starts growing. There's nothing better than that, giving back. And you're right. It's even the athletes in rodeo and some of the other sports, the sorting and the pinning and team roping, they work out now, and they're so focused on the horse feeds to give the horse the best opportunity, the horse care, the horse management, and also with themselves, with the rest and with the workouts. I mean, it's kind of like what Tiger Woods did for golf. Everybody was out there, was kind of overweight and kind of just slapping the ball around. He came out and he worked out and had guns and drove the ball farther, and then everybody else started working out. That's kind of happened in our industry as well. And but it's definitely a business, but it's a great business.
Right. And those that succeed have to work at it. It doesn't just happen. They have to work at it.
Definitely set your goals and write them down and work it a certain way, and surround yourself with the best people. And if there's people around you that aren't top notch, you might have to look at your circle a little bit, because there's a lot of great people out there that want to help. And but nobody can do this industry on their own. It takes a team. From the horses to the people, you got to have the best people around you and best horses around you.
Well, that's just like you, Scott, to be that humble and talk about other people helping you out.
Yeah,
and, I can't think of a better point or end point to close on. Scott, it's been a joy talking to you as always, and I was so happy that you got to share a little bit about yourself with your audience, so they could get to know you a little better. Is there anything we missed?
No, I thank you for the idea, and I appreciate your friendship, everything you've done for the show. And I know the guests, whenever they talk to you, you just calm everybody down and make the show great. And it's very important that, they're relaxed so they can really tell their story the right way. And it takes you doing that, and you hold it all together. So I appreciate your friendship. Thanks for doing this show too. Great idea.
So thank you, Scott. I appreciate you saying that. And all of you, you can find Scott on the Cowboy Entrepreneur on the Facebook. You can find him on YouTube. You can also find him as on all those other platforms we mentioned. And thank you all for listening and watching and your continued support. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you to all the great sponsors of the Cowboy Entrepreneur Show. If you or your business is interested in being a sponsor of the Cowboy Entrepreneur Show, please call our office at 830-992-1786 or visit our website, cowboyentrepreneur.com.